Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, an almanac of garden history, literature, and small botanical joys. I'm Jennifer Ebling, and today is May 14th. Here's an exercise to try. Take a minute today and write a letter that describes your garden. What do you love about it? What do you enjoy doing there? What are your favorite flowers? What areas give you trouble? Be honest. Be specific. Write it the way you'd tell a friend who's never seen your garden. Then clip a few flowers from the beds and tuck them into the envelope. Seal it, date it, put it away. Now imagine doing this every year. A stack of letters, a record of seasons, a portrait of the gardener you were in May of 2026. And how different that gardener will be in May of 2036. What a gift for a future you. What a gift for your grandchildren. Here's today's garden history. It was on this day in 1752 that the German agronomist Albrecht Daniel Ter was born in Celle, a town in northern Germany, northeast of Hanover. Before Albrecht was a man of the soil, he was a man of the sickbed. At the University of Göttingen, he trained as a physician before serving as a court doctor for royalty. And although he was very good at his job, 18th century medicine was still primitive. As a result, he often watched patients die from things he couldn't fix, and it wore on him. But then came the garden. Attached to his house, Albrecht had a small plot. Nothing grand, just a place to grow flowers in his spare hours. Though what started as an amusement quickly became an obsession, and he treated the garden like a science class. As he started experimenting with carnaceas and auriculas, he bought more land after his marriage, obtaining 4 hectares outside the city gates as a wedding present for his wife. The garden was both ornamental and a productive orchard. From the start, Albrecht kept records of every input and output and every change in the soil. He used what he learned as a foundation to teach others. In 1804, he moved to the Prussian province of Brandenburg, where he bought an estate known as the Manor of Merglen. 2 years later, he founded the Merglen Agricultural Institute, the first agricultural college in all of Prussia, a place that is often referred to as the cradle of scientific agriculture. Before Albrecht's work, farming was a trade, passed down by feel, folklore, and the back of a hand. Albrecht made it a science and provided textbooks, lectures, and data. His masterwork, Principles of Rational Agriculture, became the standard for scientific farming across Europe, which is how he earned the title Father of Modern Scientific Agriculture. After trial and error, Albrecht championed crop rotation, insisting that you never grow the same thing in the same spot twice in a row, that the soil, like the body, needed variety and rest. And at the center of everything Albrecht believed was humus, that dark, crumbly, almost alive layer of decomposed matter in healthy soil. As he studied humus, he saw the source of all plant life. However, Albrecht believed that plants ate soil through their roots. He was wrong. If you grow a tree in a pot for 5 years, the tree may weigh hundreds of pounds, but the soil in the pot weighs almost exactly what it did when you started. The tree doesn't eat the earth. It builds itself out of the sky. From air, carbon dioxide, pulled from the atmosphere through photosynthesis, and then made solid by the power of sunlight. Albrecht didn't know that. He couldn't see it. As a trained physician, it made sense that he used the human body as a lens to understand plants. But here's the thing. Albrecht's advice still worked, because if you add compost to your garden, your plants do grow better. Not because they're eating the humus, but because the humus feeds the microbes that make healthy roots so the plant can grow. Albrecht was wrong about the chemistry, but he was still right about the care. And today, regenerative gardeners are circling back to everything Albrecht taught. Feeding the soil, not the plant, building the humus, closing the loop. Albrecht died at 76 on his beloved estate in Merglen. His eyesight had failed him the year before, and the great observer was left in the dark. In his final years, Albrecht asked to be buried in his own garden on the shore of a small, clear pond surrounded by trees he had planted himself. He called those trees his children. And over his grave, they placed a pyramid of flowers. Not marble or bronze, just petals. One tribute said it best. The ornaments of nature's rich temple mourn for their departed friend. And it was on this day in 1905 that the Italian botanist Federico Delpino died in Naples. He was 71 years old. Federico was born in 1833 in Chiavari, a small town on the Italian coast. He was a sickly child, thin, fragile, and prone to illness. His mother's remedy was the garden. She kept him outside for hours every day. Not because she understood the science of fresh air, but because she understood her son. And to her, Federico needed the garden. It was mutually beneficial because the garden needed to be watched over, and that's what Federico did. He watched the ants climb the stems. He watched bees disappear into flowers and come out dusted and yellow. Years later, Federico would write that as a child, he unconsciously thought about studying plants. As a young man, Federico was deeply fascinated by it, and then fate brought him different things. His father died when he was 17. That's when he left school and took a job at the customs house, counting crates, filing papers, and stamping documents, all to support his family. He did that job for 14 years, but he never stopped spending time outdoors. In his time off, he studied nature on his own, with no university, no laboratory, and no mentor, just the garden and his eyes. In 1867, Federico published a paper called Thoughts on Plant Biology, Pensieri sulla Biologia Vegetale. It changed the field of botany forever. Stop naming the parts of plants, Federico said. Start watching what the plant does. It was how he had learned botany, very holistically. And when Federico studied plant life, what he saw was negotiation. A white flower that opens at night? That's for the moth. A deep tubular flower with nectar at the bottom? That's for a butterfly with a long tongue. To Federico, nectar was a wage. Since the plant can't walk, it hires help. And it does that by hanging out a bright help wanted sign, the petals, and it fills an enticing tiny cup with sugar. Then, when the bee answers the call for help and crawls in, the plant dusts the bee's back with pollen and sends her on to the next flower. Mission accomplished. It's not an accident. It's a contract between plants and insects. And it's the way things work. Federico also discovered that some plants hire bodyguards. When he studied acacia trees, he saw the hollow thorns as tiny barracks filled with nectar to feed ants. As the ants move in, they patrol the branches, and if a caterpillar tries to touch that tree, the ants attack a predator that would otherwise threaten the tree. Federico called this myrmecophily, the mutually beneficial relationship between ants and plants. As Federico made his observations, he wrote to Charles Darwin. Naturally, Darwin was fascinated, but he was also frustrated because Federico's letters alone were a challenge to understand. So much so that Darwin once wrote that it was a bitter grief he couldn't read Italian. Federico spent his final years as the director of the Naples Botanic Garden. It was a long way from his early, monotonous days at the customs house. Federico once wrote, "The plant is not a simple machine. It's an individual that acts with a purpose." Federico died on this day, May 14th in 1905, and was buried in Naples in the Square of Illustrious Men. Remarkably, for his entire life, the garden was Federico's great refuge and greatest teacher. All because his mother sent her fragile son outside and told him to stay and play. In today's Unearthed Words, we hear a poem from the American poet Georgia Douglas Johnson, who died on this day, May 14th in 1966. Georgia was a central voice of the Harlem Renaissance. By day, she worked a government job in Washington, D.C., but by night, she wrote what she wanted after the house was quiet and after the dishes were done. And she tipped her hand as a bit of a night owl when she called herself a writer by night. As her notoriety grew, her home on S Street became a gathering place for young Black poets like Langston Hughes, Count A. Cullen, and others just finding their voice. But when her own heart grew heavy, she often turned to nature. Here's Georgia's poem called Hope. The oak tarries long in the depth of the seed, while the sharp blades of clover rise and fall. And the plants of the garden fulfill their need, but the oak is silent and makes no call. It fuses the strength of the sun and the soil in the secret dark of the silent years. It weaves a garment of patient toil and drinks of the rain of the valley's tears. Till 100 years are gone and past, and the bough is great, and the trunk is vast. Clover rises quickly, falls quickly, but the oak waits. Georgia wrote those words after the dishes were done and the house went quiet. Some days, we are the clover, quick, useful, and dutiful. And some days, we are the oak, doing it our own way, in our own time, without explanation. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, The Regenerative Landscaper by Eric Olson. This book is part of Mother's Day week here on The Daily Gardener, and that means that all of this week's book recommendations feature garden stories about care, inheritance, teaching, and the quiet ways gardening is passed from one generation to the next. Eric opens his book with a scene. You step out your back door, bird song is everywhere, a basket on your arm, and within 10 minutes, you've filled it with just right vegetables, herbs, eggs, fruit, and a bundle of cut flowers resting on top. This is what Eric calls a landscape of real abundance. And it's not a fantasy. That's what Eric strives for. Eric is a permaculture designer and educator based in Northern California, and his book is the field guide for how he builds landscapes that produce abundance, not through force, but through relationship. Eric advocates for soil health, water stewardship, biodiversity, and long-term ecological resilience. But what holds his book together is the dirt work. On the page, Eric writes about years of building soil before the system begins to yield, about planting trees only your children and their children will harvest, and about designing water systems to slow down rain in its race to leave the land. He also asks gardeners to think generationally, asking, what are you leaving behind? In practice, healthy soil is not built in a single season. It's layered, fed, protected, and observed. For Mother's Day week, this book belongs because it expands what inheritance can mean. Not only roses and recipes, but living systems, the kind of care you hand to someone who hasn't yet been born. And finally, here's something sweet to ignite the little botanic spark in your heart. It was on this day in 1865 that the British plantsman and garden writer Edward Augustus Bowles was born at Middleton House in Enfield, England, just north of London. His friends and family called him Gussie. Gussie was the youngest of 4 children, and when he came of age, he was planning to become a priest. But then his sister Cornelia died at just 19 from tuberculosis, and then his brother John died at 27 from the same disease in the same year. Half the children in the house gone before New Year's. Gussie came home to Enfield, to his parents and the garden. He never went back to Cambridge, and he never became a priest. At some point that year, we don't know exactly when, Gussie pressed his initials into a brick wall surrounding the kitchen garden. EAB, 1887. Not a stonemason's work. This marking was uneven and personal. It was the imprint of a young man who needed to show he was still there. Gussie spent the next 67 years in that garden, and the initials are still there in the brick, near the gateway to the pond. Still legible today, May 14th, the day Gussie was born. As we close the show today, remember, mid-May has a strange quality to it. Everything is moving, and yet nothing has quite arrived, and the whole season is still ahead of us. And I've been thinking about that moment, how the garden asks for a different kind of patience in May than in any other month. Not the long patience of winter, which is simply endurance, but the patience of watching something that has started to begin to come to life. Maybe in a way you didn't expect. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.